Well, good day to you. Welcome back and happy holidays. Well, this is another episode in the series within a series of typewriter basics. And today we're going to be talking about portable typewriter cases. Stay tuned. So, typewriter cases is a very simple subject if you're experienced with typewriters, but if you happen to be a beginner, a rank beginner, you might want to know a little bit about how you lock and unlock the case, how do you get your typewriter out of the case. That's exactly what this series is about for the rank beginner, typewriter basics. We're going to start with one of the classic cases for portable typewriters. This is the holiday case for the 1950s 5 Series Smith Corona portables. And of course, to open the case, it's very similar to a lot of others. You pinch the two clasps together and the top half hinges open. This is the Silent Super version. And there's a few things you need to know about using the holiday case. You can use the typewriter in the holiday case itself, but you might want to remove it from the case. And to do that, you want to take this lever. There's just one on the left side, and you want to push it toward the rear, and that unlocks the front of the typewriter. And then you lift the typewriter up by its front and slide it forward. And as you slide it forward, you will see this bracket here disengages from this slot on the back of the typewriter, enabling you to remove the typewriter from the case. Incidentally, one of the reasons they call this the holiday case is because it was kind of a marketing gimmick, but they wanted you to also be able to use it as a travel case when you didn't have a typewriter in it. To do that, you want to remove this bracket that holds the typewriter in place, and there's a little lever here, and you pinch it toward the body of it, and that permits you to disengage the back of the bracket from this holder in the back of the case, and you can remove that bracket entirely, leaving you with an empty case that you can put your socks, your gin and tonic kit, your curling iron, whatever you use on holiday. The holiday case also has the top half of it which can be disconnected. You push the spring-loaded little lever arm like that, and you can disconnect it. And then you can indeed leave the typewriter in the bottom half if you wish and type with it like that. And then to reinsert the typewriter holder bracket, you want to take the back of it and insert these two tangs in the little brackets like that. And then up front, this will snap back into place like that, nice and secure, and now you can reinstall your typewriter. Let's do that. So you have this little bracket here extending toward the front of the typewriter, and that needs to engage into the slot right here on the back of the typewriter. Slide it in place like that, and then on the front of the typewriter, you want to push down until it locks into place, and then you can verify it's locked into place by making sure that you can't pick the typewriter up. It's locked in place. And being a Smith Corona, you know, of course, to center the carriage, you want to push this lever up until it centers itself, and then you can close the lid down and lock it. Make sure the lock actually locks on both sides. Then you're free to carry your portable typewriter. Well, an even more interesting case is the case for the 6 Series Smith Corona. In fact, this was what gave me the inspiration to do this video, as one of you guys sent a question in on the comments down below. How do you lock and unlock the typewriter out of the 6 Series case? That's a very good question, and it is a little tricky. This happens to be branded as a Singer, but it is a Smith Corona 6 Series electric Type R machine, but it's the same kind of case as like that Galaxy 12 or any of the manual machines. Well, it of course opens very similar to the 5 Series Smith Corona cases. You have a pinch bracket like that. It releases these two metal pieces right here, and it opens up the typewriter like that. But you might notice that the typewriter is locked into place. You can't remove it easily. And so the question is, well, how do you get it out of the case? There's no little spring-loaded bracket on the left side like the holiday case for the 5 Series. Well, it's actually fairly easy. There is a bracket underneath this block right here, and you push the bracket up, and that releases the typewriter. It's heavy, it's electric, so that's how you release the typewriter from the case, unlocking it. And then to lock it back in the case, you pull it down like that, and that locks it back into place. Very similar to the 5 Series. If you want to remove the typewriter from the case, of course, you first unlock it by pushing the bracket up, and then you're going to lift up the front of the machine, and you pull the typewriter forward, and that disconnects it from a similar kind of bracket from the 5 Series. Right down here, you have this bracket. It engages in a slot in the back of the typewriter right here. You just pull that forward, remove the typewriter from the case. To install the typewriter back into the case for the 6 Series, you want to first get this slot, the bracket in the slot, like that. And then you want to push this bracket down, and that should lock the front of the typewriter into the case again. And then you should know from previous video in this series to center the carriage. You push this lever up, let the carriage move until it stops. You're now centered, and now you can close the lid down. And you want to make sure that the latch latches on both sides. And now you're secure, and you can carry your typewriter to the ends of the earth if you desire. So one of the ultra portables that I really love is the Groma Colibri, and it comes in quite a nice case, surprisingly so. It's pretty simple. There's just a few things you might want to note about it. Yeah, the clasp on the Groma Colibri, you just push down and release like that, and this whole handle and flap folds down. And the lid opens up like this, revealing the typewriter. It is a pretty little machine, and the only thing really going on here as far as the way the typewriter sits in the case is there are 2 metal studs here and here, and those engage in little holes on the 2 front feet. So when you sit the typewriter down, just position it so those metal studs fit into those feet, and that will position the typewriter for you. However, you have to manually center the knob, center the carriage. There's no centering device like on a Smith Corona, so you basically want to make sure the knob is going to clear the lid when you close it. You don't want it to be like way over here, for instance, and have it hit. So yeah, you'll have to just reposition the carriage so the knob's barely clear. And one of the other things I really like about the Groma Colibri case is this little pouch back here with a snap holder. Gives you room for your typing paper, some correction tape or whatever. It really does make it self-contained. You have room for your writing implements, so you don't need a separate bag for this. This is all self-contained. Wonderful little typewriter. And then to close it down, of course, close it down like that, engage the lock, click, and you're good to go. Another real popular typewriter is the Royal Quiet Deluxe, the QDL, and I've always admired this tweed fabric case. And like a lot of other typewriters of this era, to open it you pinch the clasp and the top half of the lid hinges open. This is Adobe Rose. That's right, the Royal Quiet Deluxe. Now to release the typewriter from the case, you have 2 levers, one on the left side here and one on the right side here, and you push both of those levers to the rear. Like that, lift up the front of the typewriter and slide it forward. And when you slide it forward, it'll slide off of that rear bracket right here that engages the back slot of the typewriter. And now you're free to remove the typewriter from its case. To reinstall the typewriter in this case, you want to set the back of the typewriter right in front of this bracket and engage the slot into that metal tang. Push it down so it seats itself. And then on the front of the typewriter, or I should say the sides of the typewriter, you want to push the 2 brackets forward into the lock position, and then verify that the typewriter is indeed locked in its case, and you're good to go. Of course, on the Smith Coronas, they have an auto centering device. The Quiet Deluxe actually has a carriage lock, which is right here. Pull it up. You can free up the carriage to move it like that, and then to lock the carriage, push it down, move the carriage until it locks, and it's automatically centered on the case. Another thing I like about the Quiet Deluxe case is it has this document holder. I actually like to use it with this foam for a typewriter base, and then there's a little bit of information here about how I got the typewriter. I keep it with it. It's pretty handy. You know, overall, I think this style of case for the Quiet Deluxe matches really good, or competes really well with the Smith Corona 5 Series cases. In some ways, I like them actually better. And of course, once you have the carriage centered and locked, you want to make sure the clasp is securely clasped on both sides so you can safely carry your typewriter. Here's one of my all-time favorite typewriters. This is the 1930 Underwood Portable, and it has kind of an interesting case. Well, it's made in 1930, and so it's 92 years old as of this date. It's surprisingly good shape. You know, this handle, this sort of leatherette handle, I always kind of think about being careful when I carry it because I'm worried about it breaking, but it's surprisingly strong, and I actually think there's some reinforcement on the two edges of it. But anyways, it has a really neat brass locking mechanism here, and then in the back of the case it gives you feet here for you can store this upright on the floor in your closet or wherever, which is kind of cool. So to unlock this, you slide the lock to the right, and here you can see underneath the front latch how pushing that button releases that pin so you can remove the lid. And I really like this brass engraved lock plate, made in USA, UT company, Underwood Typewriter Company, very classy looking. The case lifts right off the back of the machine, and it has these two brass L brackets on the back of the case right there, and those lock in underneath the rear of the bottom, so they fit right underneath these two brackets, and that's how the back of it is secured. Now you'll notice perhaps that the typewriter itself is locked down to the bottom of the case. I have a piece of sound insulation felt, sort of sound deadening felt, but the body of the machine is actually screwed down with a set of screws, one here and one here, and it's not intended to be easily removed from its case. It's sort of intended to be used in the base of it like this. I have replaced the 4 feet on the bottom of the case with some hardware store casters that screw into place so that and works a lot better and doesn't scratch up the tabletop. But you basically have to operate this typewriter on the base itself because of the way these screws lock the typewriter down into the base itself. And there's not very much clearance, by the way, underneath the machine for setting it on your lap or whatever. It's going to interfere with the mechanics of it, so you kind of have to operate it in the base. Now, there's a couple condition issues I'll point out to you. There's a set of scratches here and here, and those are actually caused by these bumpers on the inside of the case that aren't in good shape. Okay, so there is this metal bracket with these two little claw-like feet, and it holds kind of a cork-like material that is designed to be padding for the top of the typewriter. This one is actually missing that material completely. This is one of the conditions I have to fix in this case. I have to replace those with some padding. But other than that, it works surprisingly well, and I like the simplicity of the way these two angle brackets fit under the back of the bottom of the case. First of all, you want to center the carriage, and to do that, you're going to want to push this bracket up, move it to the left until it locks it into place, and that centers and locks the carriage for you. The bottom of the case, those L brackets are just going to wrap around the back of it. In fact, you can feel right now they're already locking it in place. And then the front latch latches like that, and very simple, it's secure, and you can carry your machine now. Well, one of my favorite pre-World War II typewriters has got to be the Corona Standard, and it has a very classic pre-war Smith Corona case. So unlike the other cases that have the pinch mechanism, this has a sliding lock that releases the little tang from the slot of the lock, and it opens up, and yes, it's the beautiful flat top Corona Standard. And of course, you have to, you're obligated really to put the candelabra onto the typewriter before you do anything else. It's just one of those things you have to do, of course. And to release the typewriter from the case, there's a single lever on the right front corner of the base. You push it down and it releases the typewriter, enabling you to lift up the front of the typewriter like that. And that enables you to slide the typewriter forward, and as a way that a lot of these work, this metal bracket fits into this slot in the back of the machine. When you're putting it back in place, it's a good idea not to slide it around and ding it up. You can see somebody has dinged up the paint job and the decal on this because they were a little bit careless with getting it back in. But you do want to carefully slide the typewriter so the slot engages that metal tang, that bracket like that. And then if it's aligned properly, you can just push the front of the typewriter back down, make sure it's locked in place. It is, you're good to go. Contrary to the holiday case on my machine, that's really difficult to get the lid off or the top half off. On this typewriter, you just slide the spring-loaded brackets back like that, and that enables you to very quickly remove the top half of the case so you can use the typewriter on its base. And then to reinstall it, it's just super simple like that. They lock into place very easy. I really like this design of latch. It works really well. Of course, before you close the typewriter down, it's incumbent upon you to, of course, put the candelabra back into its bubble wrapping, put it carefully in the segment there. And now, if you've locked the carriage properly, which on these Coronas from the 1930s have a very similar locking mechanism like that as the later ones. Now it's centered. It's not a true lock, but it's centered. And you close down the lid, push this, make sure it locks it in place. You're good to go. Well, I have a Voss and a Triumph Norm 6, and both have a case very similar to each other. The Voss is a little wider of a case, but it's essentially the same case. It's made in the same factory, I think. So this typewriter I actually got from Kevin, who got it from John Lewis. This was actually a parts machine in the back of his shop, but it has this and the Triumph. You have this bracket that opens up. It has a locking lever that kind of double locks this button, and then there's an engraved arrow right here. You push it to the right to actually open it up, and you can see the pin that lock engages onto. And the beauty of this design, or the simplicity of it, is it has a groove in the bottom rear that just fits underneath the base plate. So that's how it locks. It's very similar to that Underwood portable. So this Voss and my Triumph Norm 6 are both Quart Z or Quart Z German keyboards. This was missing the entire top piece, like a Bakelite piece, and this is the typewriter where I made this wooden top. It's not the same shape as the original, but it makes it look nice. And so to remove the typewriter from its base, you have these two levers that pull out. One on the right, of course, one on the left. It just slides to the rear, and now the typewriter can just be picked up off of its base. You'll notice the rectangular feet. They fit into these little metal wells in the base. So to reinstall it, you just center the feet into those little wells and slide these levers forward like that, locking it in place. Make sure it's locked. It is. And then once the carriage is centered, which, by the way, the carriage lock on this particular age of Voss, the carriage lock is right here. You push it forward, and it is a firm, solid, positive lock. And then you're going to want to engage this groove with the back edge of the base plate. and you can already feel it's locked into place. And then you push the knob to the right until it engages the pin, and then you close this down, and that is the positive lock, so it won't come loose again, and you're good to go. You just want to sort of test the front and the back and make sure they're both locked in place. It is. Yeah, I really love these German-made portable cases. They're great. So I thought it would be worth looking at the case for the Olivetti Studio 44. It is a rather unusual case, just the shape of it, this wedge shape, and it's pretty deep because the machine is rather deep. But this represents the kind of a case that it is a full case that encapsulates the machine, but it doesn't have a locking system inside. Instead, the typewriter kind of nestles into the molding of the case. Okay, so this is a very traditional latch, you know, the two squeeze brackets, and it hinges back. One of the things I kind of like about this case is it supports itself. The lid supports itself on the desk or the table, and it doesn't like flip backwards and fall over or whatever. And also, though, the hinge is permanent on this case. You cannot remove the lid. It also has this padded little pouch that's designed to provide padding for the machine, but whatever the padding is inside here, it's kind of flaking off like little particles of sand or whatever. So I have the typewriter wrapped in a big plastic bag just to keep it clean for that reason. But the case lid also has this little padded bumper here that protects the front near the space bar. And then if I lift up the typewriter, you can see there's these big plastic rails that the feet of the typewriter fit into, and it centers the machine really nicely in the case. So all you have to do then is close it down, latch it, and you're good to go. So it's a really convenient case considering how big it is. It works really well. Here's a very distinctive typewriter case. This is the Remington Quiet Writer. I really like the style of these. They're kind of symmetrical, square, rounded corners, straight sides. Very classy looking, and of course it has the classic pinch, the pinch brackets. Yeah, you pinch those two brackets. It hinges open like that. So to release the typewriter from its base, there is a bracket on the left and the right side, and you want to operate both of them at the same time. You basically push them both down, and then you can raise the front of the typewriter up, slide it towards you, and the typewriter will slide only so far. This is probably the most non-intuitive design of unlocking the machine from the base, because what you end up with are these two L-shaped brackets, and those are actually engaging into these slots on the frame itself. So it's not very intuitive. You have to kind of hook it blind, if you will. So let me show you how to do that, keeping in mind that those slots are about even with the back of the feet. So that's kind of a little guide. You want to look and see where the back of the feet are. That should be roughly where those two slots are, and you're going to kind of have to feel for those. Seat the back of the typewriter in place, and then the weight of the machine will push the two front locks down and lock them in place, and that's how you do that. So the whole key is the back of the feet line up with those slots for those brackets. So the centering device for the carriage on this machine is actually this bracket that slides forward or backwards. You slide it to the rear, and then it'll center and lock the carriage in place. And then close it up. Make sure both of these latch properly. Sometimes this one is not quite parallel, so you want to make sure the one on the left is actually locked. It is. There we go. Yeah, I really like the looks of these cases. I like the stitching. It's just very distinctive looking. Well, some cases are a lot more distinctive than others, and if you see this case in a thrift store, antique store, or wherever, especially the curve on the front of it, you'll know immediately this is an Olympia SM3. This particular machine is from 1957. Yay! A lot of good things happened in 1957, including yours truly was born. So this case has metal stud kind of feet so you can store it upright on end. It also has rubbery feet on the bottom, and these were actually replacements that my friend Ted made for me. Well, again, like a lot of these kind of machines, you pinch the two brackets to open up the lid. It hinges open like this, revealing this beautiful typewriter. There are a set of brackets that lock the machine down to the base, and so you want to push both of them down. There's one on the left, one on the right, so you kind of have to, of course, use both hands, and then you can release the front of the typewriter, pull it forward a little bit, and instead of there being a center bracket in the middle like the case of the Smith Chronos and Royal Quiet Deluxes and whatnot, there's two brackets, one on each side here. And so when you push those two levers down, you just slide those forward and they come right off the brackets. So again, when you reinstall the machine, make sure you get both of those brackets into both of the slots. Now also, this machine enables you to remove the top of the case very conveniently, and it has a lever on the right hand hinge. You push it up, it enables you to slide the case to the right, and the pins slide out of the hinge. To reinstall them, you just want to hold that locking lever down on your right hand, lay the hinges in the cradle of the pins, slide them there, release it, and it's locked back into place, nice like that, very easy to do. And then to put the machine back in, you want to center those brackets on those slots like that, and the weight of the machine will actually lock it down for you. You just want to verify that it is locked in place. Not every typewriter has a full case that it fits into. A lot of them have a clamshell or half case. And this is true with a lot of the ultra portables, but also the Hermes 3000 lineup has this kind of clamshell lid. This is the early version of the Hermes 3000. So on the early body style, you have a center button that would have a lock normally, or a key, I should say. It pushes in, and that just releases the clamshell lid to pull off. And what's happening here on the back of it is there is a lip on the back of the case, and that hooks underneath the body here on the rear, similar to the way the Voss and the Triumph Norm 6 work on their case. So on the inside of the clamshell, when you push the button right here, it rotates this arm, and it rotates or moves these two levers, and those levers engage in these square or rectangular holes in the front of the body of the typewriter. Right here. These are the rectangular holes that engage those hooks, those levers in the body to lock and unlock the machine. So to reattach the lid to this body of a Hermes 3000, you first want to center and lock the carriage. I won't go into that. You'll have to refer to the previous video in this mini-series pertaining to carriage locks. But once it's locked, you're going to want to take the clamshell lid and fit it around the back of the machine like this. And it'll hook in place where even right now I can't remove the back of the machine. It's hooked around the bottom of the base. And then if you push this into place, it just nicely locks into place. It's a very easy to remove and take off clamshell lid. Now let's look at the middle body style of the Hermes 3000. Well, the first thing you'll probably notice is this black tactical belt that I have wrapped around it, and you might think, oh, that latching mechanism must be broken. That's why he's using a belt. Well, that's actually not quite the case. It actually works. This latching mechanism does work as intended, and that's the problem, actually, is there is a design fault in the way the medium or the middle body style of the Hermes 3000 works. So it basically has the same mechanism. It has the rear of the clamshell fits underneath the base plate, just like the early version does. But instead of having the push button lock, you have a sliding lock. And when you slide it to the right, it releases the typewriter lid. You'll notice the little rectangular holes to either side of the space bar. Those are engaged by these two levers right here that are operated by that sliding lock mechanism. And that actually happens to be the problem with this design is, so this is a spring-loaded lock. There's a spring in here. And as you're carrying the machine by its handle, on your side, let's say you're walking with it, what happens is the mass of the typewriter, if you swing this case a little bit as you're carrying it, the mass of the typewriter moves back and forth a little bit, and it'll actually disconnect the latching levers as you're carrying it. So this is a fundamental kind of flaw in the design of this case that otherwise would be really good. It's just that back and forth movement causes this to unlatch itself. And it's just a design fault. But anyways, it's a wonderful typewriter other than that. So now put the case back on. You want to first center and lock your carriage. Refer to the previous video for that, of course. And then you want to put this bracket underneath the back of the machine, like that. So it's already locked on the back side of it. Then the front side, you just push it down and it locks. You can see the way this sprung to the left. It is locked, both front and back. However, as I said earlier, I don't trust it, so I use this tactical belt that ensures that there's not enough front to back motion to unlatch it, and if it does unlatch, the belt will keep it from falling out. You don't want the typewriter falling out as you're carrying it, because that's considered bad form and will also damage the typewriter, perhaps irreparably so. Considering how expensive a Hermes 3000 is, you want to kind of be paranoid about keeping these in good shape. So that's my basic solution, is the belt. But wait, there's more. Yes, there is the later version, the 1970s version of the Hermes 3000. This is the one that's made in France instead of Switzerland. And it has also a clamshell case, very similar, based on the similar idea of the previous two versions. But it has a lever underneath the right bracket of the handle, and you just pull that lever to the right and it unlocks it like that. It's essentially the same typewriter mechanically, the same mechanism. It works just as well as the other two. It's just the body is made more of plastic, and in this case, the end caps of the carriage are very easy to break. But mechanically, other than that, it's the same typewriter. And you'll notice on the case, it has the same idea of this bracket or flange that's angled, that fits underneath the back of the base of the typewriter to secure it in place. And to reattach it, of course, you want to make sure the carriage is centered and locked. Put it underneath the back lip so the back of the typewriter is secure underneath there. And then in this case, on the front of it, it just pushes down and locks into those same slots that the other two typewriters have. In this case, though, compared to the medium version, there's no side-to-side play. So it doesn't unlock itself when you're carrying it, so it's nice and secure. I've never had a problem with it. Well, continuing our theme of typewriters with clamshell cases, this is the Olympia Splendid 33, and it has two little buttons on the either side of the handle hinge. Push those in, raise the front of the clamshell off, and it slides to the rear. You'll notice there's a nice big slot here made by these two plastic flanges, and those engage around the back frame of the typewriter like that. And it works really well. To reinstall the clamshell case, you want to first make sure that your carriage is centered properly. Flip this forward, lock it, push down the carriage return arm so it's flat. And then you can see these two locking mechanisms, right, with springs and brackets. They're made of metal, so they're nicely built. So you want to locate the bottom of the clamshell, the back of the clamshell, engage it on the back frame of the typewriter, and then push down the front, and it locks itself in place. Very easy to install and carry with you. Here's another of my favorite typewriters. This is the Royal Mercury, made by Silver Seiko in Japan. You'll notice some fundamental design similarities to the Splendid 33 in the sense of the location of the two buttons. Push it in, raise it up. It locks very similarly to the Splendid 33. It has a single plastic flange on the back of the clamshell that engages with of the back frame of the typewriter right here. To recenter the typewriter, you're going to want to first of all center the carriage, and you push the line spacing selector all the way to the back, and that will lock it in place like that. But you want to install the bottom of the clamshell around the back of the frame of the typewriter. Sometimes you have to raise the back a little bit to get it to go in, and then it'll click into place. So as typewriters evolved through the 1970s into the 1980s, the daisy wheel typewriters started coming in these clamshell plastic cases, and this also was the case with the Type R electrics. Now this is an Olympia Reporter Type R electric. It's actually made by Nakajima in Japan, and I actually love these cases. They're really more rugged and durable and more convenient than the earlier cases made of leatherette and wood. So this one has the sliding latches that just slide out. The whole thing opens up like this. The hinge for the lid is actually a flexible strip of plastic, but this is maybe the third typewriter I've had that's had this style of plastic lid, a plastic case, and I haven't had any problems with the plastic hinge breaking. It's just been super reliable. One of the things I like about these is the way the case bottom is molded to fit the typewriter. It just nestles right in there. And in the case of this Olympia Reporter, it actually has room for the power cord as well, unlike the Smith Corona 5 and 6 series, which didn't really give you much room for your power cord on the side. So in spite of it being a more plasticky build of a typewriter, I really like these later style clamshell plastic cases. They do lend a little bit more weather resistance to carrying it around. You know, if you get it wet or whatever, it wipes off real easy, and it nestles the typewriter very securely because of the molding. It just doesn't move at all, and they're just super easy to open and close and latch. So if you're interested in a Type R electric, I really think some of these later ones in the later 70s were really good having this style case. Well, this was not an exhaustive study of typewriter cases, but it represents most of them in my collection. But of course, if you have wonderful machines like the Royal KMM or the IBM Selectric 1, they didn't come with cases, so they're going to be left out of this video, except I've decided to showcase the KMM anyways, just so it doesn't feel left out. Of course, standard machines, full-size machines, aren't considered portables. They didn't come with cases, so there is that. But for now, I hope this gave you some insight into all the varieties of cases for portable typewriters and how to lock and unlock and remove them from the case. If you have any questions, drop a note down below. I'd love to talk with you. In any event, I hope you have a great holiday season and a great start to the next year. Until then, have a great day. Bye-bye for now.